At the dawn of the 19th century, the American South stood at a crossroads. The region was primarily agrarian, with its economy heavily reliant on crops like tobacco, rice, and indigo. However, these crops were labor-intensive and not as profitable as they once were. The South needed a new economic engine to drive its growth and prosperity. The invention of the cotton gin in 1793 by Eli Whitney forever altered the trajectory of this largely agrarian society. This device, which could quickly and efficiently separate cotton fibers from their seeds, revolutionized the cotton industry. Before the cotton gin, it took a laborer an entire day to separate a single pound of cotton by hand. With Whitney's invention, a worker could process up to 50 pounds of cotton in the same amount of time.
This simple yet ingenious machine revolutionized cotton production by dramatically expediting the process of separating cotton fibers from their seeds. The cotton gin's impact was immediate and profound. It made cotton cultivation profitable on a large scale, leading to a boom in cotton farming across the South. Farmers who had previously struggled to make ends meet now saw an opportunity for wealth and prosperity. Previously a labor-intensive endeavor, cotton production became significantly more efficient, allowing farmers to produce more cotton than ever before. This increase in efficiency led to a surge in cotton output, making the South the world's leading producer of this valuable commodity. The cotton gin not only transformed the agricultural landscape, but also had far-reaching economic and social implications, leading to a surge in output and transforming the South into the world's leading producer of this valuable commodity. Cotton quickly became known as white gold, due to its immense value and the wealth it generated for Southern planters. The profitability of cotton farming encouraged the expansion of plantations and the acquisition of more land to cultivate this lucrative crop.
Cotton, dubbed white gold, became the backbone of the Southern economy. The wealth generated from cotton exports fueled the growth of Southern cities and infrastructure. Ports, railroads, and markets sprang up to support the booming cotton trade. The South's economic prosperity became inextricably linked to the success of cotton farming. Planters sought vast tracts of fertile land to cultivate this lucrative crop, leading to a land rush as farmers moved westward in search of new opportunities. The promise of wealth from cotton farming drove settlers into previously undeveloped areas, transforming the landscape and economy of the South. Pushing westward into Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. This westward expansion was not without consequences. The influx of settlers and the establishment of new plantations led to the displacement of Native American populations who were forced off their ancestral lands to make way for cotton cultivation. This westward expansion, fueled by cotton profits, led to the displacement of Native American populations and further entrenched the institution of slavery. As new lands were brought under cultivation, the demand for labor to work the cotton fields increased dramatically. This demand was met through the expansion of the slave trade, which had devastating effects on African American communities.
The demand for labor on these sprawling cotton plantations skyrocketed, leading to a resurgence in the transatlantic slave trade. Enslaved Africans were forcibly brought to the South to work in the cotton fields, enduring unimaginable hardships and brutality. The cotton boom breathed new life into the institution of slavery, which had been on the decline in the late 18th century. Breathing new life into the institution of slavery, which had been on the decline in the late 18th century. The rise of cotton fundamentally reshaped Southern society, creating a rigid social hierarchy based on race and class. Wealthy planters amassed great fortunes while enslaved Africans and poor white farmers struggled to survive. The rise of cotton fundamentally reshaped Southern society. The South became increasingly reliant on a single crop, making its economy vulnerable to price fluctuations in the global market. This dependence on cotton intertwined the fate of the South with the institution of slavery, forging an inextricable link between economic prosperity and the exploitation of enslaved Africans.
The internal slave trade, a cruel and inhumane system of forced migration, became the engine of this expansion. Enslaved people were treated as commodities, bought and sold at auctions, and transported across state lines like livestock. This internal trade was a highly organized and profitable business, with traders and brokers playing key roles in the buying and selling of human beings. The journey for those forcibly relocated was grueling and dehumanizing, often involving long marches and cramped, unsanitary conditions. Between 1820 and 1860, nearly 1 million enslaved people were forcibly relocated from the Upper South to the cotton-producing states of the Deep South. This mass migration was driven by the insatiable demand for labor in the expanding cotton industry. Enslaved individuals were torn from their homes and communities, forced to leave behind everything they knew. The journey to the Deep South was fraught with peril, and many did not survive the trip. Those who did were thrust into a harsh new reality, where they faced relentless labor and brutal treatment.
This internal slave trade became a lucrative enterprise, with traders profiting from the buying and selling of human beings. The market for enslaved people was vast, with prices fluctuating based on age, health, and skills. Auctions were held regularly, where families were often separated and individuals were sold to the highest bidder. The commodification of human lives was a stark reminder of the dehumanizing nature of slavery, where people were reduced to mere property. Families were torn apart as parents were separated from their children and husbands from their wives, sold to different plantations, often never to see each other again. The emotional and psychological toll of these separations was immense, leaving deep scars that would last for generations. Enslaved individuals were forced to form new bonds and create new communities, but the pain of losing loved ones was a constant presence in their lives.
The trauma inflicted by this forced migration left an indelible scar on generations of African Americans. The legacy of slavery and the internal slave trade is still felt today, as the descendants of those who were enslaved continue to grapple with the historical and cultural impact of this dark chapter in American history. The resilience and strength of the African American community in the face of such adversity is a testament to their enduring spirit. This forced migration created a distinct cultural landscape in the Deep South. Enslaved Africans brought with them a rich tapestry of traditions, languages, and beliefs, which blended together to form a unique African American culture. This cultural fusion was a source of strength and resilience, as enslaved individuals found ways to preserve their heritage and create new forms of expression. Music, dance, and oral traditions played a crucial role in maintaining a sense of identity and community.
As enslaved Africans were brought together from different regions, they carried with them their own traditions, languages, and beliefs. These diverse cultural elements merged to create a vibrant and dynamic African American culture. Despite the oppressive conditions of slavery, enslaved individuals found ways to celebrate their heritage and pass down their traditions to future generations. This cultural resilience was a powerful form of resistance against the dehumanizing forces of slavery. This cultural fusion, born out of tragedy, contributed to the development of a unique African American culture in the South, blending diverse heritages into a shared experience of resilience and resistance in the face of unimaginable adversity. The music, folklore, and spiritual practices that emerged from this cultural synthesis have had a lasting impact on American culture as a whole, influencing everything from jazz and blues to literature and art.
The internal slave trade also had profound consequences for the development of the United States. The economic benefits of slavery were not confined to the South. Northern industries also profited from the production of cotton and other slave-produced goods. The wealth generated by slavery helped to finance the industrialization of the North and the expansion of the American economy. However, this economic interdependence also deepened the divisions between the North and South as the moral and political debates over slavery intensified. The expansion of slavery into new territories fueled sectional tensions between the North and South, contributing to the growing divide that would ultimately lead to the Civil War. As new states were added to the Union, the question of whether they would be free or slave states became a contentious issue. The Missouri Compromise, the Compromise of 1850, and the Kansas-Nebraska Act were all attempts to address this issue, but they ultimately failed to resolve the underlying conflict. The debate over slavery became increasingly polarized, with abolitionists in the North calling for its end and pro-slavery advocates in the South defending it as a necessary institution.
The debate over the morality and economic necessity of slavery dominated national politics, pushing the nation closer to the brink of disunion. The Dred Scott decision, John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry, and the election of Abraham Lincoln were all flashpoints in this escalating conflict. The nation was deeply divided, and the question of slavery loomed large over every political decision. Ultimately, the Civil War would be fought to determine the future of slavery in America, leading to its eventual abolition, but leaving a legacy of racial inequality and injustice that continues to this day.